Namaste, beautiful. Welcome to Yoga is the Answer. Today the question is, how can I learn to decrease the intensity of my desires and strengthen my sense of self? And this lesson in Swadisthana, the Sacral Chakra, is the beginning of the answer. Today I will talk about in words what we will put into practice later in the week through one beginner Hatha yoga class and one intermediate to advanced multi-style yoga class. So before we get into it, let's do a little recap of Muladhara. So we talked about Muladhara, the root chakra, last week. So I want to talk about this in using the metaphor of an itch, because I think this is a really nice way to understand it. So imagine a dog has an itch. It just scratches it, right? It's like going like this, scratching the itch, right? The dog's not aware that it has an itch, and it's not aware that it's scratching the itch. It's just doing it because it's this instinctual thing that happens. So Muladhara is the point that is the end of our animal chakras and the beginning of our human chakras. So it's like the beginning of being human. Yeah. And so it's the point at which we are no longer just instinctually scratching an itch, and we become aware of the fact that we were scratching an itch. And then as we become aware of the fact that we are scratching an itch, then we start to be able to control whether or not we scratch the itch. Okay? So, Muladhara awakening. Oh, I'm scratching an itch. Oh, I don't need to scratch that itch. Swadisthana awakening. Ah, the itch has dissipated and it's not really returning anymore. Got it? Okay. So, of course, what is one of the most, if not the most, probably the most, right, difficult itch that we experience as humans? Our sexual urges, right? So, Swadhisthana is all about Muladhara is all about kind of the taming of the behavior. Swadhisthana awakening is about the taming of the urges to the point that they stop existing. And which one of those things do you think is harder? Yeah, the second one, right? So, okay, awakening Muladhara, okay, it's not like that hard to not act on every urge, right? We're human, which means that like most of us can not act on our urges most of the time, particularly if we're sober, right? If we're of sound mind, we can like notice the urge to do something and then not do it, right? It's like a basic human thing. Many of us then go for our whole lives still having desires, and this can be very uncomfortable, right? It's like easier to be someone just acting on all the urges, because then at least like you're like scratching the itch, it goes away for a little bit. But when you stop scratching the itch, then like it can drive you mad, right? So a lot of people talk about this phase that we are when we're going through the awakening of Swadhisthana as purgatory, because it's this time when these temptations, these urges are just so strong because we've learned to not act on them, and then they've strengthened because we're in this phase where we are, right, learning to make them go away, yeah? And so essentially they go away at the point that we realize, and by realize I don't mean like logically, no, I mean like we realize in our entire being that these desires are never going to be satisfied, right? That no matter how many times we scratch an itch, that itch will always come back. And when we can realize that, and we can know that with every particle of our being, then we can ascend past the level of Swadhisthana. So that's like kind of what it's a very big part of Swadhisthana. However, what it means, what Swadhisthana means, is the residence of the self. So we talk about Muladhara being like the beginning of the ego, but Swadhisthana is like where that individual, that real like sense of self is really more developed. And in part that is because we are, it's like associated with the unconscious mind in a way that we, all of the, so the part of the brain, right, that's associated with Swadhisthana is the unconscious mind. Yeah. And so our unconscious mind is where all of our karma and all of our samskaras are held. So samskaras are, it means like impressions in Sanskrit. And so basically it's like every single thing that has ever happened, every thought that's ever occurred, and every event that's occurred in this life and in all past other lives are samskaras, and they are all like little seeds in the unconscious mind that either we are aware or we are not aware of them affecting our everything, right? So they are affecting our everything until really we have awakened Swadhisthana, and even then, like, we're mostly just like aware that they are. At the point of Swadhisthana, then we are increasing our awareness of the fact that all of these things are affecting our life. And then when we can kind of move through this, then we can fully awaken our Swadhisthana. So this is kind of like the chakra at which a lot of therapy is happening, right? So like when we go to therapy, we're talking about working through the things that have happened in our life, right? Sometimes, depending on what kind of therapy we go to, then it's past lives as well, right? And so we're doing it through these various therapeutic techniques. And so kind of what we're doing is working on the awakening of Swadhisthana when we go to therapy. And this channel is called Yoga is the Answer. You can also do this through yoga, right? So we can do it through practicing Kundalini Kriyas, or we can do it through various techniques that I will teach you over time so that we can not need to go to therapy every week or whatever for the rest of our lives. We just can find this little shortcut and awaken our Swadhisthana and free ourselves from the grasp of everything that's ever happened to us. Yeah. Okay. So that can be overwhelming, right? To be going through this process of having all this stuff from the unconscious, right? Because as we're going through it, then it's kind of like becoming more conscious, right? So, but like oftentimes what's happening is that like the emotions associated with the things are coming up. And so it's like, can be super like, oh my gosh, what is going on? And so first we kind of go through this phase like, okay, now we're back to talking about how it's purgatory, right? Because this is kind of also like being in purgatory, that we're like, oh my gosh, why am I feeling like this? Like, what is going on? I'm feeling like this because I am going through this process of kind of purging out all of this stuff that has ever happened. So that it's not affecting me anymore. And so that, oh, then I can strengthen my sense of self. Then I am like me rather than I am the culmination of all of these things that have ever happened, and I'm like kind of slave to that. Yeah. So that's why we talk about this being kind of like our the sense of self being strengthened as we awaken Swadisthana. Okay. So I've said this before. I'm probably going to say in all the videos that I make about chakra awakening that this is why I don't teach the Kundalini Kriyas, like the very intense practices that are for the purpose of awakening these chakras and the Kundalini energy, like in that fast kind of way, because of how overwhelming it can be to do it so quickly. So when I say I'm going to teach you these asana classes that we're going to be using like the physical practice of yoga, we're not going to be doing it in this like crazy fast way that's gonna make you lose your mind. It might still be difficult and it might still bring up a lot of stuff, but it's going to be more manageable because we're going to do it with hatha yoga for the beginner classes, and in the intermediate to advanced classes then I am bringing, well, in both I'm bringing in elements of the Kundalini Kriyas, but they're really just, I've made them from intuition and from just using pieces of hatha yoga, pieces of vinyasa yoga, and honestly a lot of just kind of what I have learned and experienced and what I feel makes the most sense for the purpose of awakening this chakra. Yeah. Okay. So let's talk about the placement, right? Because I kind of just like dove into the intense stuff. So let's calm it down and just kind of talk generally about like what the heck I'm talking about here, right? So, so we talked about Muladhara being the pelvic floor, right? Based at the pelvic floor. So Swadhisthana is when we start to move up the spinal column. So the placement is at the coccyx, at the pubic bone. And then we have what is called the ketram. So the ketram is the place in the front of the body that is associated with the place in the spinal column, right? So they're basically like directly in front of wherever the chakra is that we are talking about. So in this case, because it's so like you can feel, okay, I can feel my tailbone, okay, and here's like this, my pubic area. So this region around here is where the Swadhisthana is. And so as we are going through our various practices, whether they are physical movement or whether it is more meditative practices, then we're going to be bringing attention to that area. Now we get to the colors. One of the ways that we are going to be bringing attention to the area is by using the colors and using the lotus flower symbolism. So the color is, well, honestly, it's not really this color of orange. It's kind of more like what is it called? Vermilion? Is that the right, is that the right word? It's like a kind of orangey red, but this was the closest that I could find. So Orange is fine. Like when I'm picturing it, like the orange that is in my mind is actually like pretty orange. Orange, like an orange. Yeah. So yeah, we're using this color, this kind of imagination of this color, and then if we want to be imagining the symbolism of the lotus, we can be imagining this like lotus with 6 petals. Okay, so like close your eyes and you can see like, okay, there are these 6 petals of the lotus flower and it's orange, and then we can like place it into this area. We can place it into the area of the Swadisthana, and when we're using this imagery, we are kind of meditating on it. If we're using this as we are either sitting in meditation or we are chanting or we are going through the physical practice, it is going to help us be working on the chakra, be working in the direction of opening it. So as a review, that direction is such that we are first doing cleansing. So like the first thing that we do as we are moving through the chakras, we're cleansing, then we're healing, and then we're activating, then we're balancing, and then we're opening. Every person, right, is in a different place. I was going to say every person in the world is in a different place, but like technically that's not true, right? Because like there's not that many different places to be. Right, so like we are all on our own journeys, right? So some people that I'm talking to right now are going to be in different places. Maybe you're still at the level of Muladhara. Maybe you're all the way up to Agya, or maybe you're already up to Sahasrara, right? Or maybe you're somewhere along the path of awakening Swadhisthana. Okay, so maybe you're at the cleansing part, maybe you're at the healing part, maybe you're activating, maybe balancing, maybe opening. So keeping that in mind when we go into the physical practices, that as you are going into the physical practices, they are going to be helping you move along up this ladder toward ascension. Yeah, from wherever you are. Okay, so that means it's going to have different effects for different people. It's going to feel different for different people based on where you are right now. Okay, so we have the color, we have the placement. Something I think I didn't talk about in the Muladhara lecture is the animal associated. So the animal associated is the crocodile. And so it's like the crocodile is kind of it's thought to be like carrying kind of the phantoms of the self. So I don't know, to me the animal symbolism is always like, it's not the most helpful for me, and so I think that's why sometimes I forget to teach it. For me, it's a lot easier to be picturing like colors and the lotus and stuff, but if it helps for you to like connect with the animal, to connect with the crocodile, then go ahead and use that. Okay, our element is water. Okay, so at Muladhara, our element was earth, so we have the earth is like at the bottom, and then like it's like if you want to kind of imagine that you're like filling yourself from the bottom up. So like first, okay, we have the earth, and then it's the water, right? Goes on top of the earth, right? We can't have earth on top of water. That doesn't happen, okay? So water element, more fluid, right? It's like, I kind of think of like a lot of the movements that I do when I am focused on Swadhisthana and in like the physical kriyas, then it is a lot of kind of like this repetitive, like more fluid movement than in the movements for like the other chakras. Yeah. Okay, so our water element, we're kind of like moving that stuff through us. So like think of the water being this thing that is like holding all of that the karma and everything that's ever happened, and then we're like cleaning the water in order to awaken our Swadisthana. What did is there anything that I forgot to tell you? Our mantra. So we talked about it being the water element, jala, water. Our pinky is our finger that is associated with the water. So when we are connecting the pinky to the thumb, then we are, so our thumb is our fire. And so when we are connecting these, then we are connecting to our water element, and this is oftentimes the mudra that we're going to use when we are working on a Swadhisthana. So we can use this mudra as we do our chanting. And so our bija mantra, our seed mantra is Vam, so V-A-M. So depending on who your teacher is, they might teach you that you are saying it like a V, or they might teach you that you are saying it like an M. I mean, an M. I just flipped that upside down. It's like my dyslexia manifested itself. That was wild. Like a W. I do have dyslexia. Anyway, that was weird. The teachers who I trusted most say in the way like it's a W, and so that's how I chant it, is like the W. So like I talked about in the Muladhara lecture, when I chant it, then I am trying to chant it in a way that I am feeling it in this area here. So it's pretty low to feel the vibration here, but it's not quite as low as I chant the Lam for Muladhara. So again, I will demonstrate, even though I have a difficult time making this super low sound publicly, I'm going to do it anyway for you. Okay, so take our Jala Mudra and so you can play around with wherever you're feeling the reverberation for you, and then that is how I recommend you chant it, if you so choose. The Vayu that is associated is also Apana, the same as Muladhara. So this is like our waist. So again, like this kind of part of our body makes sense to be associated with the waist. Okay, this is just kind of like a little bit of additional information. It's not really, I feel like having an understanding of what we talked about at the beginning is what's most important for the purpose of actually doing the work, and that is the information that's most important to me to relate to you, is what you need to know in order to make the work most effective. So I'm just like telling you the other stuff that is generally taught, right? In the teaching of the chakras, okay? And so our associated sense is our taste. So Muladhara, I don't even remember if I talked about this, is our sense of smell, and so then our nose, and so now we have our sense of taste and our tongue, right, are associated with the chakra itself and of the awakening. So like sometimes if we are going through this process of awakening, then maybe our taste might be heightened for a period of time. We might be able to like conjure up different tastes of things, stuff like that. Yeah. All right. Well, let me just double check that I told you everything that I want to tell you. I feel like one of the most important things is knowing that this is not easy. That this is probably one of the most difficult experiences that one can have. As we're going through this process of the Kundalini awakening. Like the other chakras are going to be difficult in other ways, but this one, because it's like it is kind of really at this lower point, and that's at this point that we are like really transcending something. We're transcending like this point that many people stay at forever. And I think that many people stay there because it's so uncomfortable and it's difficult. And you can do it if you haven't already. I believe in you. So let's leave that at that, on that positive note. That I know that you can do it, and I think you know that you can do it if you don't know that you've already done it. If you've gotten here, let me know with an orange heart in the comments so I know who didn't get sick of listening to me ramble, because it can like really just seem like rambling, but it's like there's all this information. It's so difficult to put into words, this experience that needs to be experienced, you know? So that's what we're going to do as we go through the week. We're going to experience it, because that is how it makes a lot more sense versus trying to like grasp it with the logical mind. Okay, I'm still rambling. Thank you for listening to me, for watching, for dedicating time and energy to your awakening. Please let me know in the comments if you have any questions or comments or concerns, and I will address them to the best of my ability. I look forward to seeing you in the next class, whenever that may be. With so much love. Namaste.